Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going just fine, especially after I watched Merry Little Batman for the second time last night.
Second time, that's amazing.
Second time. I had watched it before it hit Prime Video, and then Barry Manilow put me in a Christmas mood with his special, and I thought, oh, what the heck? Let's throw some Batman in there. So it was a Barry and Batman double feature.
That's great.
Merry Little Batman is so much fun. I loved every minute of this. It took me right back to 1966, 67. And I was 8 years old in 1966. So I was the same age as Damian
Nice.
with my first entree into Batman. And that made me appreciate what you've done with this movie even more, because you keep us in his eyes. We are in his POV, how he sees the world, how he sees his dad larger than life.
Yeah.
Kids at most at 6, 7, 8 years old, you're drawing just square buildings, flat buildings, and then you make your characters or flowers come to life with imagination and weird colors. And you and the animators really deliver this through the eyes of an 8-year-old child. But then your dialogue is so witty. And through the animation, you also incorporate 85 years of the Batman legacy. There is something for every generation here, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was very intentional. We very much wanted to have a co-viewing experience for people at home. I kept thinking, my mother-in-law, she doesn't watch a lot of cartoons. And I kept thinking, like, it would be great if someone like her would love this movie, you know? So, and she does, by the way. She called me and she was like, I don't usually watch cartoons, as you know, but I love this. So it was, yeah, it was all very intentional. And like you said, we very much wanted it to be through the eyes of an 8-year-old. And if you watch the film, you see, like, as much as we could, we employed this concept of Damien being this little tiny kid in this huge, massive world, right? And years ago, I don't want to date myself too much, but I worked on Rugrats, and, you know, there was, like, certain staging philosophies and stuff that I kind of gleaned some of that and put that into the movie of, like, staging where we had low camera angles, where, you know, we staged things so it felt like to the viewer at home is watching this world through this tiny little kid and his perspective, and not the perspective of an adult. Especially like when he goes in the toy store and Dankworth's. And so, yeah, it's great that you picked up on that, because that's all very intentional and deliberate. So thank you.
Well, I would expect nothing less from a Philadelphia suburbanite.
Allentown.
Yes, indeed. I know it well.
Are you from the East Coast?
I am. I'm from Philly.
Oh, you are?
Yep.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
What I love is how you show us in here, for those who know the Batman legacy, or at least the movie legacy of it, not necessarily the comic books, but the movie legacy. You show us everything that's been standout that sticks in our mind. Arkham Asylum, the actual factory where the Joker is hiding out. Very akin to what we saw with the first Batman film with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. All these little visual touchstones. Yeah, I love the Arkham Asylum being turned into something beautiful and wonderful. And you've got contrast throughout here. It's always that good, evil, good and bad. And you have this set up so that Damian, he's exposed to both. He could go either way.
Yeah, he could. He could. Yeah, I mean, historically Damian does wrestle. Normally Damian's more like 13, and he's already been trained by assassins. He's already a little bit dated. So we kind of rolled the clock back a little bit in our Damian. Again, because we're telling like a Christmas story, we wanted to see it through the eyes of a younger kid. But there's always that kind of component to Damian, like, is he good, is he bad? And that's one of my favorite parts of the film at the end when Joker says to him, "You're not a superhero, you're a super villain." My hope is that audience members at home are like, "Oh shoot," because he does seem like he's fighting for justice, but there is a certain component to it that in his quest he's like completely destroyed Gotham, but then he does the right thing in the end. So yeah.
But that's a lot of the fun, and parents, I think, are really going to relate to this as he goes on. He thinks he's being a superhero. He's destroying Wayne Manor. He's destroying Gotham. Kids do that. They're like little holy terrors at times. They set their mind on something and be damned the consequences. They just go for it. And then you look back and you go, oh my. And we so get that here with Damian. And it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, some of his inspiration too came from Calvin, from Calvin and Hobbes. It's like he's too young to really understand what he's doing, right? So it gives him a lot of pathos, and you have a lot of sympathy for him. Which is another reason why we like this idea of making him younger. If he's older, then he kind of more understands what he's doing, and then
You bring in this whole idea of a single dad raising a little boy who idolizes him and looks up to him. But dad is, as all dads want to do, is protect their kid. And we really get to see the vulnerability of Batman, but without the suit, but as a dad. And that is just so lovely. You've really found the perfect tone with that. He's not always right. You can't always treat your kid like a little baby. Little baby, baby's in harm's way. All these things. But I love how you've presented that because it's so natural and authentic.
Thanks. Yeah, when we were exploring this space, because we really like the idea of, we don't really see Bruce. We don't see this side of Bruce at all, really, but there is this side of Bruce, right? And it was important for it to feel very authentic. So, myself and the writers and the storyboarders, a lot of us have kids and we're dads, and we put our own dadisms in there, like it's just, I mean, that now that's like that's a go-to thing in my house with my kids. Like literally just this morning we did it. But the kind of goodbye hug, those things, those all echo, very real moments that we all experience as filmmakers on this project that we've all experienced with our kids. And so it's good. I'm glad that you're picking up on that because we wanted it to feel genuine and authentic. We wanted people at home to see it and identify with it and say, oh, yeah, I have a relationship just like that with my kid,
This is going to resonate with multiple generations because of that. Grandparents are going to reflect and say, could I have done something different? Dads are going to go, what am I doing wrong? Or what am I doing right? So it's wonderful. Now, the animation here is first rate. I love that it's a 2D animation, but also the style of animation in how it's not true comic book. It's not the film canon. It's somewhere in between there. How did you strike upon the animation style and the color palettes that you use here? Because it's so distinctive to this film.
Well, the color palette, I have always wanted to do a project that was monochromatic. Maybe partially because I'm colorblind. I don't see red and green very well. But, I mean, I've always been very hungry to do a monochromatic palette. And with this project, like, we finally got a chance, right? So for us, it's like we have Batman, which is like dark and brooding and this type of presence, and then we have Christmas, you know, and we wanted this to feel like a Christmas movie. So we wanted the Christmas theme to really drive it in a lot of ways. And then it was like, well, how do we achieve this, right? We looked a lot to Ron Searle, his sketches for inspiration, because he has both that kind of, there's a little bit of a Charles Dickens illustration quality to his sketches, but they're funny, but they're also very gritty and raw, you know? And, you know, because it's Christmas, we wanted to feel illustrative, we wanted to feel like a children's book, we wanted to, you know, instead of being very polished classic animation, you know, we wanted to feel like a sketch, you know, like an old Charles Dickens novel or something. So that's pretty much how we arrived at it. You know, we needed something gritty and we needed something that was also comical and funny.
Mm-hmm. You definitely achieved that. I mean, I love looking at the costuming of the Joker. I love the color that is utilized there. It makes him larger than life, and it's the very circus colors that little kids like. And, you know, we look at some of the other villains, Mr. Freeze wearing a tropical shirt, which is just hilarious. But tropical floral, no, just wonderful. I mean, the creativity and inventiveness that comes out with those little touches is just fabulous, absolutely fabulous. But now a big thing here is where we have seen a Batman movie that took place it was around Christmas time. This Christmas is actually incorporated into the plot points and into the story. So, how challenging was that for you and your writing team, Morgan and Jase, to come up with a story and find that balance between our wannabe little superhero and actual Christmas and presents and Santa and all of this?
You know, that's a great question, and it was a bit of a challenge. Originally Damian got a toy, and he was chasing this toy that gets stolen. And while it was kind of scratching that Christmas itch, it wasn't quite working with the whole Batmaning thing, you know? And I think it was Jase came up with an idea of, well, instead of a toy, what if it was a utility belt, right? And then that was the magic. Once that happened, it fused the two worlds together. Like, that utility belt really binded everything. Because now it's his Christmas gift, but it also represents, it's the MacGuffin that represents, the symbolism that represents everything he wants out of life. He wants to be Batman so bad. And he gets the ultimate Christmas present. It gets stolen. He goes on this Batman quest to get it back, but to get back his Christmas present, right? So once we arrived at that, everything, all the pieces just kind of came together very quickly, you know. But in the beginning, yeah, it was a bit of a challenge because, you know, historically, you know, Batman movies, Batman properties have existed at Christmas, around Christmas, but it's usually more of the backdrop.
Yeah.
And for us, it's really important that Christmas drove the story, that this was a true Christmas story that is perennial, something that, you know, hopefully people will come back to every Christmas and watch, you know. So, but yeah, it was a challenge. It was a great question because it was definitely challenging.
I also have to wonder how big a challenge was it to select your villain? The challenge of selecting your villains. We have a plethora of villains to go through in the Batman canon.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, it's Batman. It was fun for us to see him go up against Rogues Gallery. And, you know, there's so many to pick from. We know we wanted the Joker. We know we wanted Penguin and Poison Ivy. But, you know, thankfully we are getting a series. So we're going to be able to explore even more villains. I think really the challenge more than selecting them was how to incorporate them, right? So, and our answer to that was, you know, we had to get Damian out of the house and go on a Batman mission, you know, instead of, you know, everything happening kind of Home Alone style in the house. It wouldn't really make sense to have these villains coming into the house. So it's kind of like, you know, figuring out how to get Damian out into the world and into greater Gotham so that he can encounter all these villains.
Well, you did a heck of a job. Your first animated feature directorial. Just
Hey,
brilliantly done, Mike.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.
And I like the tidbit. We're getting a series. We're going to have a little Batman series.
It's going to be Bat Family. So we're expanding the house. We're going to introduce some new characters into the Wayne family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be fun. It's 22 minutes, kind of 22-minute action-adventure sitcom.
Oh, my gosh. Well, count me in. I will be watching. And I will be watching Merry Little Batman again because it just makes you smile. It's so much fun. And at the end of the day, it has a ton of heart.
Oh, thank you.
More than his little utility belt can ever hold. Oh, Mike, thank you so, so much. And I hope we get to talk again in the future about Bat Family.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Have a wonderful holiday, Mike.
You too. You too. Thank you.